Substitute, Episode 6. "You don't seem happy with Fregene's appointment," Nnamdi said, while Paul sat with clenched teeth and flaring nostrils, tapping his feet on the floor. He watched as Nnamdi dug into his meal of eba and ogbono soup, but when he glanced at his plate, he realized he had lost his appetite. After Fregene's meeting, they had retired to their staff canteen for lunch, and not even the enticing aroma of Paul's favorite banga soup could catch his interest. "I can't believe this is happening to me." Paul threw his hands in the air. "I enjoy being at the forefront, rather than be relegated to conducting seminars and holding boring awareness programs," he spat. "Is that the way you look at it?" "Yes, I enjoy going undercover, surveillance, tackling the crimes head-on. Why must I waste valuable time focusing on the users when the buyers require more attention?" Paul felt his blood boiling. He saw no sense in this so-called new direction, spearheaded by Walter Wariboko. As far as he was concerned, the philosophy was lame. "Well, your future father-in-law has a different view." Nnamdi gulped down water as Paul flashed a cold stare from the corner of his eyes. He was so engrossed that he did not notice another colleague approach the table. "Hi guys!" Ejembi greeted aloud. He was the new lawyer posted to their command from Lagos, and he had also been in Fregene's meeting that morning. He stood at their table holding a tray of food. "Can I join you?" Ejembi's smile revealed his not-too-perfect set of teeth, and his shoulders looked broad enough to carry not just his problems, but that of a few others. "Sure," Nnamdi and Paul chorused. Ejembi settled down, washed his hands, and began to demolish his loi-loi and egusi soup. It appeared everyone enjoyed the caterer's meal that afternoon, except Paul. "How are you enjoying Port Harcourt?" Nnamdi asked. "It's a vibrant city, maybe not as fast-paced as Lagos, but I still love it." "Please join our conversation." Paul and I were just talking about the chairman's recent emphasis on drug demand reduction. Do you think it's necessary? Of course, if there's no demand, supply will suffer and eventually dwindle. The decision was a no-brainer. Exactly, Nnamdi said. Look guys, the focus has always been on supply even in developed countries. The fact remains that there are tons of controlled substances in circulation, and that's where the attention should be, and not on some addict or a bunch of school kids who need to be educated. Paul's position was clear and Ejembi couldn't help but stare at him intently. Have you ever had someone close to you dealing or hooked on drugs? Ejembi asked. Never. Paul wove it off. His family knew he was into drug combating. Besides, none of them was careless enough to be involved in drugs. So, you don't think it's necessary to organize programs to prevent the rowing menace just because you know no one involved? Ejembi narrowed his gaze. It's a complete waste of time, Paul responded with a straight face. I used to be like you? Ejembi laughed and looked from Paul to Nnamdi. Until last year, when we found out one of our colleagues was abusing substances. Apparently, he was helping himself out by tampering with exhibits. What? Nnamdi and Paul stared with eyes wide. They understood the gravity of what Ejembi told them. An officer consuming illegal drugs was unethical and unacceptable. This guy was a top narcotic officer in this agency. Someone you could beat your chest for. Ejembi hit his own chest for emphasis. I think I heard of one dismissal case last year, but we didn't get the details, Nnamdi said. They never celebrated such news in the agency, so it was possible that it was handled discreetly. That's a shame. So how did you guys find out? Paul asked. He overdosed, and when he was rushed to the hospital, the news broke and he confessed to taking some substance from a seized pile of drugs related to an ongoing case. But how did that even happen in the first place? Paul still could not comprehend it. He had a leg operation some time ago and was on powerful painkillers. It turns out he started to rely on cocaine and heroin for relief and got hooked in the process. Oh my God! Nnamdi's hands moved to the top of his head in a dramatic gesture. It was a pathetic story. But Paul knew it could never happen to him. I can never make that mistake after spending several years to build a career. Paul said, "Don't be too sure," Ejembi warned. "The job we do here is perilous. You go after people today for dealing or using hard drugs, but you are not immune from that lifestyle. It can happen to anyone, and that's why it is necessary to tackle this menace from the grassroots," Ejembi pointed out. "As for me, my days of self-righteousness on this job are long over," Ejembi said. Nnamdi appreciated Ejembi's honesty, while Paul remained adamant. "I swear, Fregin should have picked you for this role and not me," Paul muttered as they burst into a round of laughter. Lara was busy all morning, attending to clients and working on dress fittings. She was yet to speak to Paul since the incident at his house, and she just needed time to think. As soon as she finished attending to the last client, Emanuela walked up to her. "You asked me to remind you about..." "Ah, yes. How much do you need?" Lara asked. "Half my salary." "But your salary will be paid in 3 days." "Can't this wait?" "My mother is ill and she's in the hospital. Although we've settled parts of the bill, but we took some money from our savings for the baby." "Oh, I am so sorry," Lara gasped. Her phone began to ring. It was Austin. She glanced over at Emanuela. "I'll make a transfer right away," she said as Emanuela left the room. Placing the phone to her ear, she could hear Austin's voice at the other end of the line. It was ever so pleasant, and the sound of his voice lightened her mood. "How are you?" "I'm fine." "Good. Mama asked me to invite you and Paul to dinner tomorrow. I've been trying to reach Paul, but I think he's busy. Can I count on you to pass on the message?" "Sure. Are we celebrating anything in particular?" Austin's voice tuned into a whisper. "Mama just wants to gather everyone in a room to eat." "A delicious meal," he said. And it occurred to Lara that Imwe had not seen Paul in more than a month. So this was probably about him. The only sound in the car, as Paul and Lara headed to Imo's house, originated from the radio. Lara's eyes were fixed on her side of the window, while Paul's gaze did not leave the busy road. He pondered on the reassignment at work, but he kept it to himself. Lara wanted to have a conversation and stole occasional glances at him. They had said nothing to each other since their quarrel, not until she called him up to inform him about dinner. "Why are you so quiet?" she asked. "Am I?" Paul responded as though he did not know he was giving her a cold shoulder. "If this is about my father..." "I am no longer an undercover agent," Paul blurted out, and Lara turned to look at him. "Why?" she asked, but Paul's eyes remained glued to the road. "Wait, I hope you do not think my father did it." "What do you want me to think? You talk to him about his job. He knows you are dating one of his staff, and then this happens." "I can't believe you would ever think of such." "Perhaps he is upset about the whole petition thing and is looking for a fish to fry." "Why would he be so petty?" "You tell me." "These days your brother is easier to talk to," she said. "What does that mean?" Paul probed. "You obviously are not sensitive to my feelings anymore." "And Austin is, right?" Paul turned to glimpse at her face, but Lara looked away. She didn't even know why she made that comment in the first place. "No wonder the journalist at your fashion show couldn't spot the difference," Paul said. They met Austin in Imwe's garden, which he fabricated from barricading a section of her front yard. He was stooping to bury some seeds into the loose earth, but when he saw them approach, he rose to acknowledge them. "Hi!" The two brothers exchanged pleasantries. "Look at you." Austin ran his eyes over Lara's slender frame. "Is this one of the dresses from the show?" "I kept this one," Lara said. "It's beautiful." Austin had an unmistakable grin on his face. and Lara wondered if he noticed that his brother was not smiling. She looked around and spotted a trowel and a green hose stretched across the patch. Aside from these, 3 different plants bloomed. What plant is that? Lara pointed to an unfamiliar plant. Pepper soup leaves. Mama shouldn't have to look too far to make good pepper soup. And in your hands? Moringa seeds, Austin replied as Lara leaned closer to get a better view. Why do they look strange? She asked. They are not regular seeds because of their paper wings, but they are extremely medicinal. Where did you get them from? It's sold in the open market. And to the health? Paul asked. From high blood pressure to kidney problems to indigestion, it's a miracle plant. Austin pushed his open palm towards Lara. Taste it, he said. But Lara shook her head. Go ahead, try it, he urged, as Lara put 2 seeds in her mouth, chewed them with her eyes closed, but she slowly opened them wide as a moan escaped her throat. Not bad at all. It was incredible. Paul, would you like to? I'll pass. He turned towards the main house. Where is Mama? Upstairs, Austin replied as he watched Lara go after him. Imi met them at her front door. The aroma of chicken and spicy stews saturated the air. Paul greeted his mother, who looked vibrant in a red flowing gown. Good afternoon, Ma, Lara said. Good afternoon, dear. Congratulations on your fashion show. Austin showed me all the beautiful pictures. Lara smiled and watched as Imwe grabbed Paul's hand. Can I have a minute with you, please? Is there anything I can help you with? Lara asked before the 2 of them left her sight. The chicken is in the grill, Imwe said, and Lara proceeded to the kitchen, happy to render help where necessary. As soon as Imwe and Paul entered the living room, his eyes narrowed. The space looked different and wide enough to take on an extra set of furniture. Have you seen my garden? Imwe settled into her sofa. Paul nodded. He had always wanted to make her a garden, but there was never enough time. This place looks... He took one step back. Did you change the seating arrangement? Austin said the other arrangements made the room look small, but this arrangement fills the room with energy. Paul examined the space. There was nothing special besides the replacement of curtains with blinds and relocation of the seats and television from their usual position. The only new piece of furniture was a wooden shelf where Austin displayed pictures. What do you think? Imwe asked. Paul shrugged. His mother was obviously impressed, so it did not matter. He settled into the sofa beside her and asked, How have you been? It's been amazing having Austin around. He keeps me company, makes me laugh, and cooks for me. He even coordinates my stuff, which is a good thing because none of my soft drink crates go missing anymore. Can you imagine? Imu sat up as she spoke, eyes radiating with her excitement. That's good. Paul forced a smile. It was good to see his mother happy. So, why did you invite us over to dinner? He asked. I haven't seen you in several weeks. I felt like this would be a good opportunity to see you. Paul cleared his throat. Well, it doesn't look like you missed me much, he said as Imwe let out a warm smile. Don't be silly. How did it go? She asked. Paul shrugged. We keep doing our best and praying for safety. God will continue to protect you, Imwe prayed. Otherwise, is everything else fine with work? Her son looked like he had a lot on his mind that evening. I'm just processing a lot of things in my head, but I'll be fine. Take it easy, dear, she said, moved closer and reached for his hand. Paul, there is something I want to discuss with you. Paul urged her with his eyes, but sincerely hoped it had nothing to do with marrying Lara. He felt he would take that decision when his time was right. Things have changed a lot around here, and I'm so happy. Can you tell? You deserve to be happy. God has been good to me, Finding Austin, having you, I feel like the happiest woman alive. Yes, Paul nodded and could not help wondering where she was heading with this conversation. We need to support your brother. We are the only family he has. The only real blood he has in this world. Support, Paul echoed. Yes, he needs some money to start an importation business, Imwe said, as Paul raised his brow. I thought he wanted to finish school. He also wants to get into some form of business to sustain himself through the final lap of school. Imwe's explanation did not hold water at all. How much are we talking about? 5 million naira. 5 what? Paul gasped. It's for business and he even offered to pay me back. Look, I have 3 million. Can you assist with the remaining sum? I will do no such thing. Paul rose. His downbeat response left Imwe speechless. Something is fishy. Don't you think this is getting a little suspicious? He asked. What are you talking about? Your brother needs our help. How long has he been around? Suddenly he is Mr. Nice Guy, running errands and doing favors, and I can see you guys are falling for it. You, Lara, every single person. I can't take steps without hearing Austin this, Austin that. Paul struggled to remain calm, but he couldn't. Imwe's shoulders caved in at her son's sudden outburst. How and when did he become so bitter and angry? Why are you so upset? She asked. I didn't ask for a brother. My life was on a smooth track before he showed up anyway, so what do I care? Paul! Imwe exclaimed. The door swung open and Lara walked in on them but hesitated. I'm sorry, It's okay, my dear. Is the chicken ready? Imwe asked. Yes, we will join you shortly. I'll set the table, Lara announced and left the room. You must be crazy. I hope you remember you had a life before you met these people. Chinedu couldn't believe his ears when Austin announced he will not be returning to the cartel. Austin flung the trowel in his hand to the ground, leaned against the fence and held the phone closer to his ear. It's not like I won't come back. I just want to spend more time here. That's all. You need to listen to yourself talk, Chinedu hissed. Please get down here because there's work to be done. Austin didn't know how to explain that he had grown attached to his biological family in a way he never imagined. His mother helped him view life in a different light. Paul, his twin brother, challenged him to rethink his life choices. Lara, even though she wasn't part of the family, was a good source of inspiration and he enjoyed being around her. His mind drifted to Paul again. They were yet to spend quality time together, and somehow Austin felt like he needed it to get to know his brother better. The desire to be closer to his new family was strong, and he knew it was because they were all he had. Chinedu needed to understand that, but so far he didn't. Remember the Malaysian package I told you about? Tiger just called to say the package is due for delivery. Tiger! Yes, it's a big one. And this is your opportunity to impress him, Chinedu said. The Malaysian border was risky, and so was the rest of the Asian borders, because of their strict punishment for offenders. But if Austin scaled through, it was bound to be rewarding. Austin had never carried out any foreign assignments, and he knew that was what made him eligible for the trip. Yet he developed cold feet. I thought my first foreign trip was for Senegal. Plans have changed. We've secured an undergraduate admission for you in Malaysia, so it will be easy to get past the border, and no one would single you out. School admission? Austin could tell his question irritated Chinedu. For heaven's sake, Austin, I don't have time for this. As we speak, your travel documents are ready. Please take the next flight back to Lagos. I've thought about this well, and I don't think I want to do this anymore. Austin let it drop gently, and for a moment, the line went silent. "Are you quitting on me?" Chinedu asked. "I feel like I should do something different with my life," Austin said. "After everything I've done for you, you dare to treat me this way? Do you have any idea what I put myself through to arrange this trip for you?" Chinedu's tone was harsh. "There are several guys that have been begging for this chance, but I convinced the tiger for your sake, and this is how you repay me?" "I'm sorry." Austin started to apologize, but Chinedu hung up before he could say another word. Austin knew it would be tough to break the news to Chinedu, but he wanted to turn a new leaf, and this was a good time to take a stand. The rewards for trafficking illegal drugs were huge and tempting, but if his mother could assist, raise the money he needed, then he could start a more credible business in Port Harcourt. He slipped the phone back into his pocket, packed up the gardening tools, and made his way into the house. Lara was taking out a tray of chicken garnished with assorted spices and vegetables from the oven when Austin entered the kitchen. He could taste the smell in his mouth. Having spent the whole afternoon gardening, he did not realize how hungry he was until his stomach started to yearn for food. "That smells so good." He closed his eyes and rolled his head comically. But as he reached out to touch the food, Lara slapped his hand. "Go wash your hands and assist me set the table," she said. "Sure." Austin washed his hands and joined her in the dining room. "Where is everyone?" he asked. "I guess they are playing catch-up." Lara was not really interested. All she could think of was how inconsiderate Paul was for signing the petition against her father. "What about you?" "Huh?" She wasn't following Austin's question, but she was aware of her own restlessness as she tried to remain calm. If Paul was discussing her father with his mother, then that was his problem. "I hope you two have had enough time to catch up. Did you get to show him the pictures from the fashion show?" Austin asked, as Lara recalled Paul's reaction to the picture she took with Austin. "Yes," she replied. "Are you okay?" Austin held her gaze for some seconds, but she looked away. She knew he had seen her in better moods. "I'm just tired," Lara said, and placed the last set of cutleries around the plate, hoping he would not press any further, and thankfully, he did not. Austin joined them at the table much later. "You kept us waiting," Paul said. His tone was calm and insensitive. "I'm sorry, I had to take a quick shower," Austin apologized. Imu cleared her throat. "Shall we?" She led them in a short prayer before the meal. Family was everything to Imwe, and whenever she called for dinner, it was because there was something to be grateful for. Paul was back after more than a month of being exposed to ruthless criminals. Lara, his girlfriend, whom she adored, had wrapped up a successful fashion show, and Austin had decided to stay back with them, so she had a lot to be thankful for. However, the moment did not sit right. Paul's behavior shocked her, and she did not understand why he reacted the way he did to his brother's request. For the first few minutes after they ate, the table was quiet. Each one of them held their thoughts until Paul spoke up in a cynical tone. "You guys don't need to bother about me going away soon, because I'm no longer running undercover duties." He looked from his mother to Lara and then Austin. "I've been moved to tackle the demand of illegal drugs, and that means a ton of awareness programs and seminars," Paul said, as his mother raised her brow. Clearly, it was the first time she was hearing the news. "Paul dear, is that a good thing?" she asked. "Depends on how you look at it," he sighed. "But I think I am paying for my sins," he added. "Sins? What sins? Did you step on any toes?" Imwe frowned. It was at that point that Lara stood. "I'll get the salad," she announced. "Do you need help?" Imwe asked. "I'll fix it," Lara said, and slid into the kitchen. When she left, Austin turned to Paul. "You'll lose her one day if you keep this up," he warned, and Paul couldn't believe his audacity. Excuse me? Do you think you're being victimized because you signed a petition against their father? Austin asked. What petition? Imwe was groping in the dark. She searched for answers in their eyes, but there was nothing. What do you know? Paul shot at Austin. I know that you need to stop blaming her for your issues at work. Austin's response stirred some dry humor in Paul. He had just gotten off an argument with his mother over Austin's outrageous demands for money. And now this. What right have you got to intrude into my personal life? Paul asked as Imwe sensed the rising tension and held Paul's arm, but he ignored her. I blame myself for allowing you come here. Now you feel you can turn things around. You think I don't know what you are up to. Paul, Imwe didn't like the way this was going. No, Mama, please let him talk. Let him say what he has on his mind, Austin said. Things were fine before now. You show up and suddenly everything needs to be fixed. Who do you think you are? Paul charged while Austin sat calm. He could understand his brother's rage. Paul could not stand the fact that someone else filled in for him. I can see that my help makes you insecure. Austin said, Help! Paul repeated, Unlike you, I have a good job, a house, a fulfilled life, yet you sit there and talk about helping me. How do you want to help me when you haven't even helped yourself? Paul asked. Paul, that's enough, Imwe rebuked. Go back to where you surfaced from. Paul added, Can you please stop? Imwe did not like the way Paul spoke to his brother. Besides, Austin had done nothing wrong to deserve this. But Paul did not stop. He went on and on. You show up pretending you wanted to reunite so we can become this one big family. But you are a big scam and no one wants you here. Don't you see you are trying too hard? Where's all this coming from? Imwe asked. He's right. Maybe I should go. If you're not happy with me being here, I'll go. Austin, please don't say that, Imwe pleaded. She was obviously confused at the level of anger swelling between her sons, but that did not mean she was ready to let any one of them go. This is where you belong. You have no other family but us. His mother pointed out, I'm sorry that you feel I'm intruding, but all I wanted to do was to get to know you all, Austin explained. Austin, you are not an intruder, Imwe pointed out. Mama, let him go if he wants to, Paul said. It makes sense for him to go back and pick up his education from where he dropped it off. After all, his criminal parents couldn't even afford to send him to school. With clenched fist and veins throbbing on his forehead, Austin bumped the dining table out of the way, seized Paul by the collar, and hauled him up so they stood inhaling the heat from each other's breaths. How dare you talk about my parents like that? They were criminal, Paul said, deady, and before he could utter another word, Austin slammed him against the wall. Paul charged back, throwing a punch at Austin's nose, but Austin expected it and retaliated with his open left hand across Paul's face, crowding him with a series of punches. Fortunately, Austin had seen it all. A veteran of street fights, he hoped to register the sixth blow on Paul's ribs, but Imwe's screams filled the air. At that moment, Lara emerged from the kitchen to find Imwe separating her sons, and she rushed to the scene. Please, I beg of you, stop this! Stop this! As soon as Austin heeded to their pleas, Paul shoved him aside. Get out! He blurted, and Austin barged out of the room. 3 chairs toppled over, and the dining table had been shoved from its usual position. Lara glanced around for answers, but Imwe was sobbing. She moved towards Paul. Paul! She searched his eyes, but he straightened his shorts, wiped his nose with the back of his palm, and grabbed his car keys. Let's go! What happened? We are leaving now, he snarled. Paul hauled his car out of his mother's garage, navigating onto the freeway in one swift gesture. He had not uttered a word since they left, and his eyes were blazing. Can you please answer me? Why did you get into a fight with Austin? Lara asked. That bastard asked my mother for 5 million naira to start a business, and she fell for it, Paul said. Lara took a deep breath. She did not think that was something worth fighting over. I think your mother is trying to build a relationship with your brother. Too much water has passed under the bridge and that guy is a scam. I'm sure he's here to suck us dry under the guise of reuniting with family. Paul lashed out. But he is your brother. I don't care. His intentions are not genuine and I can smell it. Paul scowled, but Lara didn't believe him. As far as she was concerned, Austin was a selfless person who had come into their lives at the right time, and he was far from the image Paul portrayed. As Paul pulled the car to a brief halt at a traffic light, it started to rain, and the drops were slick on the ground, visible only by the gleam of the street lights. Lara observed some regular pedestrians scamper across the crosswalk. Once at the other side, they took shelter in a crowded bus stop. Two boys left, stranded in the rain, begged a woman to make room, and when she did, they squeezed in together, holding each other's hands and giggling as they did. I thought you were happy to have him around, Lara said. The traffic moved and Paul sped up. Is it my fault we got separated at birth? That I have a life and he is still struggling to have one? Paul asked. And when Lara started to say something, he held up his hand. You need to be careful, he warned, as Lara tilted her head because she was not sure what he meant. Austin is in love with you. Paul was not making eye contact as he continued to speak. I see the way he looks at you. All those favors, all those ideas he brings to the table for your business. The guy wants you. Lara could not move. She only felt the warmth in her face as she sat listening to Paul. It's convenient for him to pretend to be the good guy, but you need to watch it because it seems like you're getting carried away. Paul, please stop, she said. His assumptions were unbelievable. How on earth could he conceive a thing like that? But Paul didn't stop. Instead, he started to probe. How many times did you guys hang out when I was away? How many times? When Lara did not respond, he jumped into a row of long-winded accusations. I thought as much. Did he touch you? Did he kiss you? Did you guys have sex? This is crazy! Lara rolled her eyes as Paul continued to raise his voice. Answer me! Did you sleep with him? No, she snapped. It's almost like I can do nothing to please you. You asked me to talk to my father, and when I do, you find a fault with it. You asked Austin to help me out with my fashion show, yet you loathe the pictures we took together. I try my best to maintain a good relationship with your family, but all you do is complain. Complain and complain. What is it with you, Paul Harrison? Lara's rage nearly consumed her. She had gone from being speechless to feeling a sudden rush of blood to her head, and now it felt like she was about to explode. As Paul approached the final turn to his apartment, Lara's muscles tightened. Take me home, she said, but we are almost at my place. I don't want to go to your house. Stop the car. As soon as Paul held his brakes, Lara jumped out and slammed the door. Ignoring the icy droplets of rain that pierced her skin and Paul's pleas, she hailed a taxi to a parent's house. What happened? You look awful. Mrs. Wariboko sat consoling her daughter who had done nothing but cry ever since she entered the house. Tola placed her arms around Lara's shoulder. Tell me what happened. We had a nasty quarrel. Lara couldn't bear to tell her mother the details, or that Paul was one of those who signed the petition against her father. I don't want to talk about it, Mom, Lara said. Although she could not fight back the tears, she hoped her mother would understand enough not to prod. No man is worth this much stress. Perhaps her mother was right, but Paul meant a lot to her and she wanted their relationship to work. Lara heard her phone ring. It was Austin. Do you want me to ask the person to call you back? Tola asked, but Lara shook her head and wiped her tears with the back of her palm. I'll answer it. Is it Paul? No. Okay. Her mother resigned and left the room. Austin was apologizing. He knew Paul would have unleashed his anger on Lara, and he was not far from the truth. Paul was his blood, and they could easily preempt each other. It's not your fault, Austin. Lara sounded broken. I feel like my presence is causing a lot of trouble and I am sorry about it. Lara had stopped crying, and it was a good thing Austin could not see what a mess she was. Her hair was all over the place and her eyes were sore and red. I'll be leaving for Lagos tomorrow, Austin said, and Lara's stomach dropped. Why? She asked. She thought he had decided to stay back, and she knew his mother loved to have him around, so why was he leaving suddenly? I think it's the best thing to do. I am glad I met my family, but I can't continue to stay if I am not welcome here. I should return to Lagos and get on with my life. Austin sounded resolute, and Lara didn't know what else to say to him, but she mumbled a few words. I'm so sorry, she said. Austin was a true friend, and she would miss him. I hope you hold nothing against Paul. I hold nothing against him or anyone. I just need to move on with my life, and I have made my decision. I really wish things could be better between the two of you. I do too, but a lot of water has passed under the bridge, and it may be a lot to ask from two grown men, Austin replied. Paul made a similar comment earlier that evening, and Lara wondered how the two of them could be so alike yet so different. As soon as Austin got off the line, she buried her head in her hands and wept.
Thanks for watching. This story was written by Uduak, Edet and produced by Tconcepts.